Welcome to the Steve and Caleb Show. My name is Caleb.
And my name is Steve. Here we like to talk about politics and current events from a perspective of liberty.
Oftentimes our opinions make both Republicans and Democrats uncomfortable.
Let's dive in.
All right, Steve, I just have one question for you. Did you have fireworks on 4th of July?
This year, no. Just because with the way schedules and everything worked, just didn't get to go buy them. I did go buy the big Shelton's fireworks stand, the big store off I-74. It's like supposed to be the biggest fireworks store in the United States. I don't know if that's accurate, or second biggest, whatever it is.
How many Confederate flags are in there?
I didn't see any, actually, surprisingly, but I did see, hold your breath, a lot of Illinois license plates there. Funny how that worked, because they're right next to the border.
Right.
There's an awful lot of front license plates in that parking lot right now, because all the people from Illinois drive over here just across the Indiana border to buy their illegal fireworks, which are illegal in the state of Indiana, because we live in what's called a free state. Well, mostly. But, yeah, I didn't do any. Usually we do. I have a friend of mine. We usually do a big thing at his house on the 4th. He had to get his kidneys replaced a couple weeks ago, so he's still recovering from that, but he's planning on doing a big get-together where we all... I mean, the fireworks show lasts so long, we literally just stop because we get bored. There's just so many fireworks. I think the last time we did it 2 years ago, when it wasn't overseas, was I think we had like $3,000 or $4,000 worth of fireworks.
Well, the reason why I was asking is because, like, when you think of the like yee type stuff, you know, like the fireworks and the guns and like all that rural fun stuff, you know, people automatically assume that it's always going to be here in our rural areas because we're not as progressive, right?
True.
And so the reason I asked that question is because in my little town of like a few hundred people, we didn't have fireworks. Obviously, it's because of COVID, and I'm not going to sit here and say that like COVID's not real, because it is. I'm not going to do any of that, even if I think numbers are skewed. But it just makes me think about how complacent, and if you don't know what complacent means, just pause this episode and look it up. It makes me think about how complacent like Midwestern rednecks are. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to fireworks or guns or really anything that has to do with any type of freedom that we like to enjoy. It just makes me wonder how complacent we are. Now, another reason why it makes me think of that is because locally I'm introducing a piece of legislation that basically makes it to where, you know, like if a super liberal president got voted in and they try to ban like AR-15s, our county would essentially say, nope, sorry, not here. It's called a 2A sanctuary ordinance. It's super simple. You can Google it.
Right. I will say, to correct one thing you did say, you're not introducing, you've introduced.
Oh yeah, I've already introduced it.
Right. Yeah. Which I thought was like, oh, this is real stuff happening. This is real, like, local community-based activism. It's not just getting on Facebook and saying like, I love my IR. It's real. And to your point about complacency, I feel like a lot of people that I spoke to about that aren't from necessarily where we live, but all over Indiana and all, some in Ohio and whatnot, they kind of rolled their eyes at it, like, oh, that's a waste of time. To your point, I do think there is a huge amount of complacency, not just with, Second Amendment or fireworks or just liberty is in general. Yeah. They think that it won't affect us here. But the thing is, what happens in one place eventually will make its way here. That's just how it works.
Theoretically, yeah.
I mean, look at like the way COVID spread. Obviously the federal level, they've mishandled it grossly, but it's obviously a thing. It's a real thing. But it started over here, and then it was here, and then it was here, and then it was here. And now, that's how legislation works. If the federal government says this is illegal, it's illegal, right? Now, whether or not we disagree with it, in that case, obviously we would disagree.
From a legal perspective.
Correct, right, of course. But that's not to say we're going to be bootlickers and obey that law. Obviously, the whole purpose of you submitting that piece of legislation was to say, hey, federal government, we reserve our rights as states and as local communities to govern ourselves. Maintain the interstates, maintain the military. What's the break up monopolies? I think it's another function of the federal government, which is questionable. But anyway, that's it. That should be it. That should totally be it. Get the federal government out of it. Handle it. What we always say in the military: handle it at the lowest level, which applies to any lifestyle. Right. If you can fix it at your level, whatever it is, fix it.
Now, the reason why I think complacency is so embedded, and I used to be one of those people that used to like eye roll, and because it's like, oh, we don't need that here, we're fine. Even if it does come here, our local sheriffs and cops, they'll be like, nope, sorry, we're not going to enforce that. But then I went and introduced the piece of legislation, and the commissioners, for those of you who are listening, the county commissioners essentially vote on if they want to implement it or not. And so when I introduced it, I had like my best 90-second speech. I had people invited, like with the chairs in the commissioner's room were filled with people. We had like 15 people. I mean, it wasn't that much, but it was just an introduction. It's not like we all knew they weren't going to vote on it. But they looked at it. I talked about it. The sheriff did not like it. The commissioners were silent. They were nice and polite, and so was I. They were just like, we'll think about it. But it just wasn't too assuring. And so, when everybody was like, you know what, you don't have to worry about that here. It's like, well, obviously we do, because as soon as it was introduced, they did not like it. It made them uncomfortable because they know it's going to happen. And so...
You said the sheriff didn't like it?
Yeah, so the sheriff didn't like it because... And I can show you the emails later on, but basically in the emails, he stated that he has to enforce Indiana law no matter what, and that's his job. His job isn't to protect the people. His job, according to him, was to enforce Indiana law.
Right. Well, isn't he a local police law enforcement person? He's not. Yeah. He's not state, like the state cops are state cops.
Right. Well, I guess
police.
I guess the sheriffs are technically state employees.
Really?
I think so. But regardless,
right.
From an ethical standpoint, sure, but from a moral standpoint, dude, that's wild.
Right.
That's just wild.
Absolutely.
And so, anyways, he was sitting in the back. I included him in on all this about a week after I started this, so way back in January. And I even, like some people would have just emailed and Facebook messaged, and if they would have got denied by him, they'd have been like, all right, cool, whatever. But I actually called him, and I set up, I tried to set up a phone appointment, and I missed the call, so I called him back. And anyways, I got a hold of him, and he was one of the ones where it's like, we don't need that here, da 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 da.
Did he say why?
Well, his reasons seemed kind of shallow. He said he didn't want like mom's demand action showing up to his doorstep.
Oh,
and it's like, what? So anyways, I went ahead and did it anyways. Like, I don't need his blessing.
Right, absolutely.
Because that's just stupid.
It'd have been nice, but yeah, you don't need it.
Right. It would have been amazing.
You'd like to think that your law enforcement officials in your local area would be supporters of the Constitution, being that they swore to defend the Constitution and their local communities.
Yeah, every single person I talked to was like, first off, for those of you who do not know, like, people in Indiana love to talk about how they're friends with the sheriff.
Yeah.
The sheriff is a politician. He's going to act like your friend.
Absolutely.
Anyways, so everybody's like, yeah, like, I'm friends with him. He's going to be totally cool with this. He lets me hunt on his property, or, we're totally cool. And it's like, dude, he wants your vote. But anyways.
He's a politician. At the end of the day, that's what he is. Yeah. Like, obviously, there's a law enforcement job there, obviously.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he's trying to get reelected.
Oh, of course.
I mean, I get it. It's not a bad thing.
No.
But I get it. But at the same time, you have to go into the situations understanding this is an elected official.
Right.
So by the way, notice I didn't use the word leader.
Yes. Correct.
Different topic, different day. Anyway.
So anyways, these people were like, yeah, you know what? He'll be cool with it. You just got to introduce it, and they'll vote on it. It'll probably be yes. So I was like, all right, cool. So I came in with that mindset with a little bit of skepticism, but that happened, like I just explained. So that brings up the question, are we as Americans, even in places that are considered safe for these types of legislation that wants to get rid of AR-15s or different types of weapons accessories, I truly believe that complacency is going to kill us, and I believe whoever's listening to this needs to step up and try to deter that complacency. And the only way you can do that is by being actively, I don't know what the opposite of complacent is, but you need to be anti-complacent.
Right. I think just active is the right word.
Right.
That doesn't mean like share the most offensive like bro vet meme on Facebook you can find. But like, I'll give you an example. So just the other day I was at my dad's house, just hanging out with him and my brother and my sister. And his girlfriend's there, and she's not anti-Second Amendment, but she's one of these, well, I think it's fine, but... So she brought up the fact, she asked me if I had a gun on me right then and there, which I didn't, like, in that moment. It was in my truck, locked. Because when I'm at a family's house, like a get-together like that, I generally, where it's a small town, I'm in nowhere, I generally don't carry, like, on my person, Now, that being said, I went to another friend's house in Indianapolis. I kept that thing on me, you know what I'm saying? Like, but she asked me, she said, well, did you wear it, like, on the way here? I said, well, yeah. She said, why? This isn't a dangerous place. I said, you know why it's not a dangerous place? Because people like me carry guns, and people know that. Right. People know that in these little small towns, people are carrying weapons lawfully. They're being aware of things. And I think that's what maintains this safety net. You know, you don't have the same kind of crime here that you do in big cities, because it's kind of understood. If you come out in the country and you start breaking into someone's house, they're not going to call the cops. They're going to shoot you in the face.
Right. They're going to call a freaking ambulance.
Right. They're going to call the ambulance or the morgue, depending on what weapon system they choose that day. I can see if you break into my house, you're probably going to get hit with a 45 and a 40 cal, because one for me and one for my wife. And before my kids get too big, you probably have like a 20 gauge shotgun thrown in the mix too. Right. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to give my kid a loaded shotgun at night. But anyway, but that's true. I mean, that's the world we live in. I think it's kind of understood that you just don't want to do that in these small towns like this. Now, does crime still happen here? Yes, obviously. There's still the need for law enforcement. But I think an armed society is a polite society, is in a weird way, a roundabout way, the source of that complacency. Because we are so safe where we are. Right. And I don't think that, guys like us carrying guns is the only reason. I think there is a cultural difference in small towns and big cities. It seems like when you get people together, they just get nastier. Like in a big, packed in, things like that. It's loud. There's all the hustle and bustle. There's a different energy.
Dirty.
Yeah, I mean, this is how it is. We've all been to big cities, and we're like, man, I could never live here. All the houses look worn down and tired, and we have that here too, though. That's the thing. Right. Like, I drive through Milan, I see like old washed-up trailers with rusty cars in the front yard. And then I go to somewhere in Indianapolis or Chicago or Texas or wherever, and I see the same thing, but it's cramped together. It's a different culture. I don't even know if culture is the right word. It's just a different energy.
Like, I would say culture is the right word. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that complacency in our small towns is because the culture is different. There is like the threat of violence for doing bad things. Criminals don't just pick random targets, like, for the most part.
Smart ones, right? The good ones,
right? Yeah. The bad ones get shot. Like when they come do stuff.
They don't live long. Their life expectancy is like super short.
Right. And you watch all the documentaries where they go into prisons and they talk to people about, how did you pick your victims, or breaking into a house or whatever it is. It's like, well, you look for someone who's not paying attention. Look for someone who's carrying themselves in a way.
A hard target.
Right. A hard or soft target. They know what to look for. There's body language. I mean, there's everything. When I'm not exactly like a real tough looking dude. Like, I'm just kind of a slightly overweight. I got all these kids. I'm like, got this glazed over look in my face, But at the same time, I'm paying attention to what's going on. I'm looking. I always look at people around me when
you carry yourself up.
Right. I try to stand up straight. Yeah, exactly. I try to present something, even if I'm not trying to fight people. Like, we all did, combatives level 1, where you just, do exercises. That's all it is. It's used to do more PT at basic training. But that's it. That's all I've done. I'm a mechanic, if you need your tire flipped, I'm your guy. But if you need someone...
For the military, you're a mechanic, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can do stuff I can fix your lawnmower, too. But,
okay, sure.
But I'm not what you'd call a trained killer, I mean? I know how to use my weapon, my pistol, whatever pistol I carry or whatever it is. But I think the biggest weapon that we have is being aware, right? But part of that comes with, again, going back to this small town complacency. I'm not complacent. Even though I live in a town that statistically I'm never going to have to even draw my weapon, let alone use it. But the fact of the matter is, I think people in our town, because we, in our areas, tend to be more conservative. They do tend to be Second Amendment proponents. Whether they're like you and I, where they think machine guns should be legal for civilian ownership, or you have, the FUDs who think that the 1911 is the only gun that's ever existed. 2 world wars, I love 1911s, by the way. But anyway, whatever
your brother-in-law,
whatever side of that coin you're on, you're gonna carry yourself a different way than someone who thinks that's not. It's weird talking to people that are from cities, especially now that these riots are happening and the lockdowns and people are out of work. And so people are kind of realizing, like, hey, my neighbor he may be out of work and he may be trying to feed his kids, and he's going to do what I would do to feed him, which is anything.
Literally anything.
Right. It's kind of weird. You think about, you like to think, some of your neighbors, if like it hit the fan, quote unquote, where everything was shut down, like
they would just ask you.
Right, they would, we'd all come together as a community. Right. But I feel like a lot more people than you would like to think would be those, like, they would come into your house, kill you and your family to take your food. You know, I'm not saying everyone's these bad people, but you get people that aren't sure how to take care of themselves at a desperate time, and then they act, they fall back on that lack of knowledge how to take care of themselves. They're going to do crazy things. And so now we get into these lockdown, people are out of work, crime rates have spiked all over the country. I think there's even been a slight hump where we are, although I don't feel like we've been affected as much with it as bigger cities and bigger, more populous states. But there's people, I listened to a podcast. I can't even remember the name of the guy who it was, but he had a guy who owned a gun store in California, and the guy brought up where their sales have been insane. I mean, I went to go buy some 38 bullets for my mom the other day in Lafayette, and the line was out the door of this gun store.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm paying the extra shipping and handling to buy it online because I'm not about to wait in this line to go buy some 38 bullets.
Did you go out and see what that line was for?
No, I didn't. I just
because I went there as well, and so I was asking.
Was it 4 guns?
Yeah. And so I showed up and I was like, "What's with this line?"
Yeah. I didn't get out.
This goes with my question. So apparently, this gun store owner, I don't know who the owner is, but he only lets like 3 or 4 people in at a time because of COVID.
Oh.
And that's why there's a line stretching out. Okay. And I'm like, wait, so you're only allowed to have as many people per behind the counter sales associates there are in a place that is
one
owned.
For one.
Yeah, right.
One customer per employee.
And this is supposed to be owned, at least hypothetically, by somebody who is pro-liberty, pro-freedom, and that just kind of goes back to the complacency because it's like, we are faced with COVID, I guess, if you want to say we're faced with COVID. And you see conservatives crumbling at the first sight of pressure.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to another question, and this is going to get so much blowback. I cannot wait to get the emails or the messages after I say this. But do you think that conservatives are so complacent with this issue that, I don't know how to say this without saying it the wrong way, that they will allow the cops to take their guns when that day comes because they will be so pro thin blue line?
Oh, yeah.
They'll be so complacent. Yeah. They'll be like, you know what? I know you're just doing your job. I back the blue. We pray for you in Bible study. We got you. I got my Punisher skull in the truck. You're good. I know this is going to pass.
I like seeing the Don't Tread on Me flag and the thin blue line sticker next to each other. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think we both support good police officers.
Yes.
But, so here's my answer to your question. Here's what I think. Yes, under one condition. If a Republican is president. If Barack Obama was president right now, and like all the police locking down cities and stuff.
Right.
Do you think conservatives would stand for that for a second? Or Republicans,
not for a second, dude.
Not for a second. They'd say, "Oh, he's a communist." Blah 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 blah. Don't get me wrong. There's stuff Obama.
He's a Muslim.
That I didn't care for. Like I'm not a Republican. I'm very conservative. But but Trump's not pro 2A. He's simply not. He says he is, but that's what you're supposed to do when you're a Republican. You're supposed to say, "Oh, I love the guns." He straight up said, "Take away the guns and let the courts decide." He literally said it. Like those words, we've also. I mean, if you haven't seen the video, it's very easy to find
because it's not fake.
Because it's real.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, and he can't say, "Oh, it's fake news." You said it, right? Like, don't get me. He's governed much more conservatively on a broader spectrum than I thought he would. Being an old New York, he used to be Democrat,
right?
An old New York guy, right? He definitely does not have.
The economy's great, too.
The economy's great. That's what he's got, right? And he's done some good things. You have to take the president in the pieces that you like, right? Sure. The president can't be the be-all, end-all of your politics.
No, of course not. You can't put all your hope in one person.
Exactly.
That's wrong. And if you do, then I question your judgment.
Right. And so the problem, so us saying this, by the way, I don't feel like we're being unreasonable.
No.
All the, Trump trained 2020 guys, they're going to be all up in arms if they hear this is, "Oh, he's done this and that. He's just had the media's been against him and all this and that." It's like, I'm quoting him. Right. I'm not saying what CNN said. I don't watch CNN.
No.
I don't have cable. I don't even have internet in my house. Everything I get is like stuff I have to look up on my own. And I listen to conservative news. I listen to liberal news. I listen to people that claim to be in the middle, which generally still lean left. But anyway,
yes.
I listen to all of it because the answer is always somewhere in the middle, right?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, going back to your point about like them giving up their rights. People have rolled over for these lockdowns, for all the things because a Republican is president. If Barack Obama was president right now, people would not wear masks. Conservatives would not wear masks. Let's put it that way.
Question.
Answer.
So, do you think then, if Joe Biden becomes president and there's a second wave of this COVID, and they implement similar infrastructure like they did this time, do you think the people who back Donald Trump's decisions would then come up to arms?
I think more would, but I think our population has been groomed for obedience. I mean, how many times have you said, "Well, I'm not going to wear a mask when I'm out in the public"? Like, me personally, I still try to stay away from people. I do wash my hands a lot more than normal.
Right.
I'm a mechanic, so I almost never wash my hands. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've eaten lunch with grease in my fingernails. This is what you do.
You're not being ridiculous.
Right. It's just how it is.
Right.
But I'm also not. I'm not going to be violently anti-mask or anti-social. We've all seen guys that are like, "Oh, you have to kill me before I wore a mask," and this and that. Like,
right.
And the example is Menards. You have to have a mask to go in there. They'll sell you one. So they're just making money. They're a private business. That's fine. I don't shop there.
Right.
I don't have to go there. There's no one twisting my arms to make me go to Menards. I can go to Lowe's. I can go to Home Depot, which, by the way, gives veterans discounts. Right?
Home Depot.
Yeah, Menards don't do that. I think they do, actually. But anyway, I have options. It's a free country. Capitalism is great for that purpose. But yeah, I totally think more people would resist it if Joe Biden had done this.
Yeah.
Being that the quote unquote Republican administration we currently have has already started these things. I think there would be an element of people like, well, we already did this. What's one more? But that's how things are done. Is they're gradually removed. I mean, you look at the gun laws. Since the NFA was passed.
Yeah.
The NFA was like all or nothing, and it went away, and now they're slowly, well, let's take this away. Let's take this away. Let's do this. Let's restrict this. Let's add this. That's what they know what they're doing. They're smart.
So one reason why I had the whole complacency thing in my mind is because, did you hear that because of Trump's bump stock ban, the ATF is reconsidering what is considered a brace and a stock?
For like the AR pistols and stuff?
Correct. So for those of you who do not know, if I believe it's under 16 inches for your barrel, it is considered a short-barreled rifle. Now, if you replace the stock with what's called a brace, so it's basically just like a minimalist stock. Like, it's just a stock that isn't as good.
On paper, their design is it fits over your forearm to hold the weapon, because there's AR pistols.
Right.
And the only difference is basically that stock. The lower and the upper are basically the same.
It's basically the same.
Yeah.
So this law, or what they're looking at to make a law, is since Trump banned the bump stocks, they want to redefine a stock. So basically they want to make braces stocks. It's either all or nothing. It's either stock or it's not. And they're saying that it all is. So anything that you can put up to your arm would be a stock, including that. And so,
I mean, wouldn't that be a buffer tube at that point too?
Yes. So that's the point. In that, like, when you're talking about the NFA and they keep taking, they're going to take away braces from you being allowed to put a brace on your rifle. And so now you're gonna have to have a tax stamp like you would have for a regular SBR, which, by the way, is why people do the braces. So you don't have to pay this, what is it, $500-$600 tax stamps to have a stock on your rifle that's under 16 inches. And it's looking like it may happen in the next year or two.
Right. So here's the answer to the complacency question is, what will people say to that? Oh, well, I don't really need that.
Yes.
It's just one more little thing. That's what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're just chipping away.
I would like to make clear, I don't think Trump is part of this like conspiracy, like gun takeover thing. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Right, I agree.
He is hated by so many people. There is no way he's part of that. There's just no way at this point. I don't believe it. And you may not agree with that, but I truly believe that he's just not part of that.
Well, I think someone's told him, like, somebody with the ATF or whoever wants this to be a thing, and they've made a case to him.
Sure.
Because I'll give him this, he's really big about, you go handle this.
Yes.
And he's like delegating things, right? For
yes,
good or for bad.
That is a good thing he does.
I think that's generally a good leadership principle.
Yes.
Is, hey, you handle this problem. I mean, he told the state governors with the corona thing, handle it. This is your state.
Yes.
We'll provide you funds, but you fix it. And then he's calling people out who aren't. I think it's the same thing happening with, like, any of these weapons laws that are being implemented. I think he's just being told that it's a good thing.
Yes.
And I think
I agree.
He doesn't know. I mean, he's grew up in New York. He was classically Democrat. He doesn't know. I would be surprised to hear if he ever fired an AR-15 or a shotgun,
right,
or a pistol, like anything.
His son's a little different. He comes to Indiana actually all the time.
So I guess he was at one of the restaurants in Crawfordsville.
He goes to the Covington Beef House like once a month.
Does he really?
Yeah.
That's insane. He's like super hunter though. I mean, he's, of course they're like, oh, he killed the elephant. Like, okay, he paid millions of dollars to further fund this wildlife conservatory in Africa to maintain the elephant population. They killed an old sick one. That's what they do, by the way. All of you people who think killing these animals is like the worst thing that's ever happened, they're paying to keep the animals alive. Hunters fund more conservation efforts than PETA ever will.
Sure.
With our licensing fees, our hunting stand, all that stuff we have to pay, we're doing that. Separate topic, back to complacency. I get distracted. So, but yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just one more step towards, their end goal. And that's how it's always worked.
Right.
And I think the other problem is our fight to fix it. There's not going to be hey, let's get rid of all the gun laws. You'll never pass that, ever.
Right.
But what you have to do is repeal the individual law. Mm-hmm. I think it's just how it works now. I don't think there is any more like outright blanket get this gone. Right?
I'm trying to pass one. But...
Right. But I just don't think that's how it's going to work anymore. I might be wrong. I'm not like educated expert on stuff like this on political science.
We're not political scientists.
But I just see that's how society works nowadays. And I think that's kind of a good thing. Handle one problem at a time. That's something I'm not trying to like advocate specifically for Jo Jorgensen, but one of her thing was in omnibus bills, i.e., hey, here's our budget for the year, but let's also add a law that raises the smoking age to 21 and not vote on it by the public. Did you know about that?
I did not.
It was part of the budget, the federal budget, and they added a law.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, what's this have to do with the budget? Why can't we just...
What do they call it? Pork.
Pork spending, right? Or whatever, they're adding stuff to these bills. I don't know why. I'm sure there's like an advantage to it, but my whole thing is handle one problem at a time.
Right.
Whatever it is. And some people, I think they put these problems out like, oh, we'll just pass this. Everyone agrees with it. No one reads it. And I think it was Ted Cruz with one of these budget bills. He like had it, and it was like a 3-foot stack of paper.
Oh God!
And he goes, "This you guys submitted this 2 days ago. No one's read this.
Right?
Why are we trying to pass it today?" It's like, I get it. Budgets are especially at the federal level. Budgets are complicated, but it should just be the budget.
Yes.
Like, how hard is it to balance a checkbook? You send this much to this department, this much to this department. All the departments that need funding, you fund them. Or you could make cuts, or you tell them to be more responsible with their money, and then you pass the budget. And then if you want to raise the smoking age to 21, talk about that. If you want to try to ban bump stocks, talk about that. But it shouldn't be at the behest of one person making an executive order.
No,
it should be.
Dude, that was just awful.
Congressionally, I tell you what, if Congress discussed something like that and they asked their constituents and people are speaking out, and then they still ban them, there's part of me, I'm still not okay with it, but there's part of me that's like, I'll swallow that pill. I don't like it, but I'll take that medicine.
Because there's at least representation.
Exactly.
As opposed to his executive order that did ban bump stocks.
Yep. So, just one thing at a time. How do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. Is the government a big fat elephant? Yes, it should be shrunk. I think anyone that's liberty-minded thinks that way. But our government is so bloated that it's just insane. We've both seen depots of equipment that the military owns or has owned or whatever, and just endless rows upon rows of vehicles. And then why is the military budget billions of dollars every year?
Right.
It's like, maybe we should cut that stuff out, But
and that goes with part of the complacency issue that I have. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that listeners and then the listeners' connections should really try to work on. And I think you were right earlier. The real answer to it is just to become active. Mm-hmm. In order to deter complacency, you have to be active. It's kind of like the old business saying. Now, I obviously don't own my own business right now, but the saying is, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yes.
And I think
you're never staying where you are. You're either going back or going forward.
Right. Yeah. And that goes with all parts of life. So all parts of life, obviously, like health and strength and finances, if you're not actively trying to become better, then you're probably going to become worse.
If you haven't been going to the gym during the lockdown, did you get stronger or did you get fat like me?
Fatter.
Yep.
Actually, I'm starting to run now. I'm starting to run about 2 miles with my plate carrier. Now, my plate carrier has steel plates, not ceramic, so they're a little heavier. But my 2 mile time with my plate carrier is right around like 13 and a half, 14 minutes, where it would have been like 20 minutes.
Really?
So I've really cut, yeah. I'm really happy with myself. I just wanted to
I can't run that fast without a plate carrier.
Anyways.
My dad bod. My dad bod has a max speed of like 8. Like whatever that is, I don't even know. But, yeah.
All right, man. Well, I hope all of you enjoyed listening to our show, and we'll see you next week.